1990's Days of Thunder was the end of an era for Tom Cruise. It would be the last movie he'd make as part of his youth phase, which began with Risky Business. At the time, he was best known as the cocky young hotshot, but when this movie underperformed at the box office, Cruise took some time off and returned as a more seasoned leading man, with 1992's A Few Good Men kicking off an unprecedented streak of hits. While Days of Thunder has a valued place in Tom Cruise's filmography and remains a popular title, when it came out, the movie was considered such a disappointment that the film's two producers, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer's deal with Paramount Pictures came to a fractious end. So, what happened? Top Gun on wheels. That's what everybody was calling Days of Thunder back in the summer of 1990. Everyone, no doubt, hoped lightning would strike twice, and Cruise, who was reteaming with Tony Scott and Simpson Bruckkeimer, expected a hit. Indeed, it was set to be one of the biggest movies of 1990, boasting a then mighty $35 million budget, a figure which would be doubled by the time this hit theaters. The film stars Cruise as Cole Trickle, a rookie hotshot who enters the world of NASCAR and becomes embroiled in a rivalry with the sport's biggest star, Rowdy Burns, played by Michael Rooker. Trickle's got a problem. He knows nothing about cars, but put him behind the steering wheel and he can do amazing things. Having washed out of open-wheel racing thanks to his father's financial crimes, Cole finds himself forced to rely on a team of misfits, with his benefactor a car dealer, played by Randy Quaid, who can only afford one car. Luckily, he's got an ace up his sleeve with a veteran crew chief, played by Robert Duvall, taking him under his wing. What follows is a pretty exciting, if fanciful, journey into the world of NASCAR, where friends become rivals, rivals become friends, and everyone wants to be a champion. First things first, Tom Cruise is basically playing Maverick. From his entry into the movie wearing a leather duster, over a denim jacket, over a dress shirt, while on top of a motorcycle, Cole is the same kind of headstrong rebel Maverick was. Similar to Maverick, his family is plagued by scandal. And just like how he found a father figure in Tom Skerritt's Viper in Top Gun, he finds a new mentor in Robert Duvall's Harry. It goes further than that though. Just like in Top Gun, there's a terrible accident that shatters Cole's belief in himself. What's cool is that the Iceman Goose figures are merged to some degree in Michael Rooker's Rowdy, with them starting as enemies only to become closer than brothers once they almost kill each other in an accident. For the rest of the movie, Cary Elwes as Russ Wheeler, who's even styled to look exactly like Val Kilmer in Top Gun, is the antagonist, although it feels like at least half of his role ended up on the cutting room floor. So why is Days of Thunder controversial? Cruise is great in it, as is Robert Duvall. The supporting cast is top shelf, including a young John C. Reilly in his other NASCAR movie, long before he teamed up with Ricky Bobby. You can even see a young Margot Martindale timing all the laps on the racetrack in a few scenes. There's also a pre-insanity Randy Quaid and, best of all, Nicole Kidman in her American film debut as the Australian neurosurgeon who Cruise falls for, and vice versa. If anything, the movie is better remembered as the movie Cruise and Kidman met on, with the two marrying the very same year the film hit theaters. Plus, it has a kick-ass musical score by Hans Zimmer. What could possibly have gone wrong? Excess. That's what went wrong. Days of Thunder is the movie that brought the heady days of the 1980s to a grinding halt. Producer Don Simpson is a legendary figure in Hollywood, but not entirely due to all the good movies he made. In addition to making Flashdance, Top Gun, and Beverly Hills Cop, among many others, he was a party animal known to indulge in his share of drugs. It seems like Days of Thunder was the movie where his demons really caught up with him, and the money the studio poured into the film certainly helped. In fact, Don Simpson was even supposed to co-star in the movie as a race car driver, Aldo Benedetti, although he pretty much just has a cameo now, even though he's one of the first actors you actually see in the film. There's a great book about Don Simpson called High Concept that goes into the various hijinks that took place behind the scenes. For instance, Simpson and Bruckheimer threw a welcome party for the crew where food and drink were almost non-existent and someone forgot to take care of the music. Oh, but remember the hookers? It got worse though. Robert Towne, the movie's writer, had not one but two barns built for a chunk of his script, but he turned out to be impossible to please, so the scenes were excised. In fact, the screenplay was in constant flux, with the crew standing by idly for hours every day while Simpson, Bruckheimer, Tony Scott, and Robert Towne fought over what to shoot. Despite the difficulties, Scott would re-team with Simpson and Bruckheimer on Crimson Tide, and Towne would become Cruise's go-to writer for most of the 90s. Financially, the film was a disaster, with the budget ballooning, much to Cruise's dismay, who prided himself as a professional. It was said to be one of the experiences that pushed him into producing, which would start with Mission Impossible in 1996. The film was so chaotic that they actually forgot to shoot a shot of Cruise's car crossing the finish line at the end of the film, in which he wins the climactic race. It had to be added just before the movie opened. In the end, the film actually did decent business in theaters, grossing $82 million domestically, and much more overseas and on video. But it took a while for the movie to make a profit, and it's worth noting that the film only made $10 million more than Born on the 4th of July, which was a far less commercial movie. It only made half of what Rain Man and Top Gun had each made, and it was nearly outgrossed by Cruise's own Cocktail, which cost a fraction as much. Even the soundtrack whiffed, with the 80s-style power ballads by people like Whitesnake's David Coverdale dated by the time the movie hit theaters. Even still, Cruise came out ahead, with him getting a new wife in Nicole Kidman out of the deal, and perhaps a new attitude, which would see him take on greater creative control on his follow-up movies. It's hard to imagine Cruise starring in anything as thinly plotted as Days of Thunder now, but despite everything, I think it's aged fairly well, and it certainly has its fans, one of whom is Quentin Tarantino, who actually says it's a better movie than Grand Prix or Le Mans. I'm not so sure about that, Quentin. But hey, yeah, Days of Thunder is a lot of fun, and it's a good addition to Cruise's filmography.